Shannon.
Great to see you tonight, Laura. Thank you so much. Live from Sacramento, hello and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream. We are live from California with some major breaking news right here tonight. We are here in Sacramento amid a supercharged showdown between the Trump administration and California authorities, state and local. We have breaking news tonight as Attorney General Jeff Sessions comes to town and launches a brand new lawsuit late tonight aimed at California defiance. It's a state that's making it that much tougher for federal immigration agents to do their jobs. And back in Washington, we are following a major shakeup in the president's economic team. And Wall Street already reacting tonight negatively in contrast to what we're hearing from Main Street. Praise for the president's tough stand on tariffs. We have got team coverage for you tonight. Trace Gallagher with the very latest on this late-breaking showdown between the Trump administration and California. But we start with Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry with what he's learning about the departure of White House economic advisor Gary Cohn.
Well, Shannon, great to see you out there. Breaking tonight, there are already names being floated to replace Gary Cohn at the White House, from conservative supply-side economist Larry Kudlow to trade advisor Peter Navarro. Remember, he beat out Cohn on the tariffs issue in recent days, while the president today was correct when he said there's turnover in every single White House. There's been a particularly large number of departures lately, from Hope Hicks to Rob Porter, multiple press secretaries, communications directors, national security advisors, and yes, chiefs of staff. What's significant about Cohn, he was a key architect of the tax cut, plus the regulatory reform that has propelled the economy. And with the markets getting a lot more volatile in recent weeks, there's no denying this is a big loss for the president. While he lost a high-profile battle, Cohn, to try and stop the president from moving forward on those steel and aluminum tariffs, White House officials tonight are insisting Cohn is not running out just because of one dispute. But in fact, it was 2 months ago today the president boasted he wanted Cohn to stick around for a, quote, long time. Tonight, Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, was on with Martha, saying this was a big battle within the White House. But in the end, he believes the president is right on these tariffs. Watch.
Let me speak about the president's movement on tariffs. I support 1,000%. We're talking about fair trade. Everybody in America is for fair trade. This free trade hasn't worked out well for America or American jobs.
There is no doubt this is going to feed the mainstream media narrative. It's already been out there. The president denies it, that there's chaos at the White House. But as the president himself noted today, he likes conflict. He likes different points of view in the room, whether it's trade or other issues. Diversity of thought is something that's supposed to be a virtue, obviously. But right now he's facing a lot of criticism. It was his former chief of staff, Reince Priebus, who said over the weekend, critics may pounce on this meandering process, on decision-making, all of the departures, staff moves. But the focus should be on the results that the president is getting, Shannon.
All right, Ed Henry live for us in Washington. Thank you very much, Ed. And this is a Fox News alert. The Department of Justice tonight launching a major lawsuit against the state of California, alleging deliberate interference with federal immigration policies. The DOJ is seeking an injunction to immediately block enforcement of 3 controversial new state laws here. And the lawsuit's already sparking angry responses from prominent Californians tonight. Trace Gallagher joins us now with details. Hi, Trace.
California has certainly been building for a while, but it appears the last straw may have come 10 days ago when Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf warned residents in the San Francisco Bay Area about imminent operations being conducted by Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. The DOJ now says California has repeatedly interfered in the federal government's plans to enforce immigration law. So the Trump administration is asking a judge to immediately block 3 California laws enacted within the past year. First, a law preventing state companies from cooperating with ICE when it comes to accessing workplaces or employee records. In other words, the state wants private companies to shield illegal immigrants from federal agents. Secondly, the DOJ wants to end California's controversial sanctuary state policy, which places limits on who local police can hold, question, or transfer into federal custody. Remember, this is the policy that ended up allowing a 5-time deported illegal immigrant to get out of jail, get a gun, and kill Kate Steinle. Finally, the DOJ says it's unconstitutional for California to be allowed to inspect immigration detention facilities run by the Department of Homeland Security. Attorney General Jeff Sessions will be in Sacramento, as you noted, tomorrow to make a major announcement on sanctuary cities. In the meantime, the AG says, quoting, the DOJ and the Trump administration are going to fight these unjust, unfair, and unconstitutional policies. We are fighting to make your job safer and to help you reduce crime in America. The Attorney General's trip west comes at the end of a tense week with President Trump. The president is frustrated with Sessions for recusing himself from the Russia meddling investigation. But aside from a few friendly jokes Mr. Trump made about Jeff Sessions at the media dinner on Saturday night, the feud appears to be calming down. Though in his response to the DOJ lawsuit, California Governor Jerry Brown wrote, quoting, at a time of unprecedented political turmoil, Jeff Sessions has come to California to further divide and polarize America. Jeff, these political stunts may be the norm in Washington, but they don't work here. Sad. And California Attorney General Javier Becerra said this about the lawsuit, quote, we've seen this B-rated movie before, so we're not totally surprised. Nothing really new here. We're prepared to deal with this. And finally, because of California's sanctuary law, the Trump administration withheld $1 million in grant money. Now, a judge has ruled the money does not have to be paid, at least until litigation is settled. So you can call it a temporary victory for the Trump administration. Shannon.
All right, Trace Gallagher, thank you very much. For reaction now to this late-breaking move tonight by the Trump administration, cracking down on California as a sanctuary state. That's the best way to put it. Let's bring in Harmeet Dillon, an RNC committee woman here in California. She is also a civil rights attorney who regularly argues before the Ninth Circuit, and Nevada Republican Attorney General Adam Laxalt, who has been challenging California's sanctuary city policies and state policies from across the state line. Welcome to you both.
Happy to be here, Shannon.
All right. I want to start by reading a little bit from the lawsuit, Harmeet. I know you've had a chance to look at it. General, I don't know if you have as well, but it says this. The United States has undoubted, preeminent authority to regulate immigration matters. This authority derives from the United States Constitution and numerous acts of Congress. California has no authority to enforce laws that obstruct or otherwise conflict with or discriminate against federal immigration enforcement efforts. Harmeet, essentially this goes after 3 state laws that the feds say California is actively trying to stop them from doing immigration enforcement.
That's right. And as you mentioned, Shannon, the law points out that their supremacy clause in the United States Constitution requires that the federal government has the exclusive authority over immigration laws in our country. So California's got 3 laws that were passed last year, each of which is designed to obstruct, in one case, lawful employers. In the second case, the operation of the federal government with regard to detention of aliens. And in the third case, law enforcement is actively barred from cooperating with the federal government to give names of people who are about to be released, et cetera. So each of these is a direct threat in your face to the United States government. And as you can see from the angry reaction from Jerry Brown and Javier Becerra, they're not happy with being confronted with this. And so, but to me, as a legal issue, it's pretty simple. It's just like any other federal law. If a state doesn't like it, the state doesn't get to overrule the federal government. It's the other way around in our scheme. And the last time we had states trying to go off on their own and ignore federal law, we had a civil war in this country. So this is a dangerous time, and it is time. I'm glad to see the Attorney General stepping up.
Yeah, it is a pretty bold move tonight. General, I know that you have been fighting because you say what happens in California actually impacts your state as well. And when they have certain policies, it flows over across the border to you. You've been at this legal fight a while.
Absolutely. We've been in litigation for over a year. We originally supported the DOJ when they were trying to make sure they had the authority to withhold these grants. But let's talk about what's really going on here. These are very dangerous policies. This is common sense that our law enforcement locally needs to work with the federal authorities to get dangerous felons off the streets and to get them out of our communities. And so, of course, in Nevada, for your national audience may not know, we're a 3-hour drive in both major cities to Reno and Las Vegas. If they're not working with federal authorities to get violent felons off the street and deported, they are easily able to drive over the border and end up here in Nevada. And here, all 17 sheriffs and myself as the top law enforcement officer. We've been fighting against this. We were able to push back this last session when the Democrat legislative session tried to push this forward. And fortunately, we spoke in one voice and were able to convince our lawmakers that this is simply makes no sense and endangers our citizens.
Okay, now the federal judge at the district level, the very first level, who's been handling many of these cases, Judge Orrick, last fall he ruled against the administration when President Trump issued an executive order essentially going after sanctuary cities. He said this, he said the Constitution vests the spending powers in Congress, not the president. So the executive order cannot constitutionally place new conditions on federal funds. Went on to say federal funding that bears no meaningful relationship to immigration enforcement cannot be threatened merely because a jurisdiction and immigration enforcement strategy of which the president disapproves. Now, Harmeet, there are many different cases now kind of joined together and related being handled by this judge. He's had a couple of different rulings, but essentially so far what he said on the merits is the feds can't do a lot of what they're doing or trying to do with respect to defanging sanctuary cities and defunding them.
Right. Well, so this was an executive order passed by the president in the salad days of the administration in the first few days. Mm-hmm. The Attorney General of the United States then came out with a statement that sort of tried to cut back or define what the executive order covered. And that's what the judge ruled on today. The same judge ruled on, this Judge Orrick ruled today, that actually when you look at only cutting back or holding back grants that have to do with law enforcement, which is a much lower amount than all federal funding, that is not necessarily a bad thing at this stage in the litigation. So he's asking the government to come forward and prove that there's a legitimate tie between law enforcement and the enforcement of immigration laws. That seems obvious to you and me and the Attorney General from Nevada, obviously, but for our law enforcement in California, the rhetoric that you hear them using, like the Attorney General here did today, is, oh, we're tearing families apart. Well, if you're a family with a criminal who's done drug trafficking, pimping of children, armed violence, DUI, et cetera, those people go to jail too in America. And so shielding them is actually putting illegal immigrants at a much higher level of protection than the rest of the society. It makes no sense.
Well, this case will have to wind its way through many hurdles, including the Ninth Circuit, maybe eventually at the Supreme Court. Harmeet, General Laxat, I know that you will both be watching as this journey continues, and it may take a couple of years. Thank you both.
Thank you, Shannon.
Absolutely.
All right, please tune in tomorrow night to hear from the Attorney General himself, Jeff Sessions, about this new lawsuit and much more. We've got a lot to discuss with him. It is a Fox News at Night exclusive interview tomorrow.